board advisor for the Global Mental Health Action Network and for the Lancet Commission on Stigma and Discrimination, as well as being a board member of the NGO Parcham that works with adolescent girls. Apart from this, Raj is practicing canine and feline behaviorist and works with both pet and stray animal rehabilitation, including raptors and ocean birds such as kite, herons, and owls. We welcome you. Please do take the die.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for having me here, especially since this is the first time that mental health is being discussed at this summit. So I'm very glad and honored to be here. Thank you for the introduction. And to talk, I will be drawing on my experience with MHI, which is a personal philanthropy. And as was mentioned, it's a grant-making, advocacy, and capacity-building organization that works only on mental health, and that is especially for marginalized persons and communities. Now, the programs that we support have a strong focus on community-based grassroots, where services and support are provided not just by experts, but also by trained persons from within communities. So to give you an idea, currently we work on about 27 projects with 26 partners across the country. And this is in rural areas, in urban informal settlements, in hilly regions, and in regions facing conflict like Manipur and Kashmir. Some of the communities that we work with are farmers, victims of violence, LGBTQI communities, youth, the homeless, and religious minority communities. Now, along with services, we also focus on advocacy. Now, this ranges from advocacy with government to implement Indian laws related to mental health, as well as technical support and advice, such as training people in the legal system or ministries, as well as police on mental health rights, as well as working with our partners to help build state government helplines and other state-led services. Similarly, so with our own in-house program that trains mental health professionals to be LGBTQI affirmative. Now, currently, we've trained about almost 300 persons across the country. So with that, I'll kind of stop with the introduction. And as the introduction said, there are a large number of youth in the world, and the largest numbers are in India. Now, if we look at India and mental health overall, 150 people living in India have mental health issues or concerns. Now, 80% of that remain without support due to lack of access to mental health care. Now, this number, if we look at Indian numbers, it also includes the largest youth population in the world. India has 600 million people below the age of 25. Now this, again, if I look a little deeper, this includes the largest adolescent population in the world. That's 253 million people. Unfortunately, India also has the highest suicide rate amongst 15 to 29-year-olds globally. And suicide is the most common cause of death for Indians who are 15 to 29 and 15 to 39. Now, this is a massive problem, especially when I said earlier that of the numbers that we know, 80% have no access to care or support, right? Now, what does this mean for those who don't live in major metros? What does this mean for those who don't live in the regions of plains? The presence of mental health is absent at a primary or even a secondary level, which means that it's only there in larger cities. Those who live in rural locations or hilly regions have to travel very long distances to access mental health care. And part of that is a very high treatment cost, but not just that. It's also the cost of maybe taking one day off to travel, the cost of losing maybe earnings for that day. And then it already costs someone an average of 2,000 to even reach mental health care. Now, that's very hard. And it's especially true for those who live in the Indian Himalayan region or any mountainous or hilly territory, really. So this access to social or health infrastructure and support is never at parity with the plains. And similarly so for access to any sort of social safety net. Free psychological assistance, which is there in many district hospitals in districts that are in the plains, is not so for mountainous regions. And that then, of course, as my introducer very clearly said, is also the same thing for education opportunities, livelihood opportunities. So in terms of policy, what does it mean? Do we have any laws about this? What are the government responsibilities in this? Now, I'd like to talk about the Mental Health Care Act, which came into existence on May 2018. And that essentially says that it is the state's responsibility and duty to provide public services such as healthcare to its citizens. So it is the government of the day which has to be held accountable in a court of law if a person is unable to access mental health care services. Now, if I break this down a little bit further, it's interesting because the Mental Health Care Act guarantees the right to access mental health care and treatment to all persons without discrimination on any basis. Okay. The Act also says that mental health care has to be available in sufficient quantity. And it very clearly says that mental health care has to be geographically accessible. Finally, it also says that the services must be of good quality and of acceptable scientific and medical standards. Okay. So what does this mean for the Indian mountain region? The geographic accessibility is something that really must be advocated for at various levels. Okay, because as we know, whether it's in plains or in hilly regions, currently people with mental illness who require mental health care do not have accessible services, or those who are even receiving those services are unable to access quality care that is affordable, easily available, and acceptable. So if we have to look at addressing the issue of mental health, it has to be affordable, it has to be good quality, it has to be accessible geographically, and it has to be acceptable even culturally, because that's in the Mental Health Care Act, to persons with mental health issues and their caregivers. Okay. Now, if I take a step back from all of this, unfortunately, over the last 1.5 years, COVID has really highlighted the linkages between physical and mental health and the linkages between our lives and experiences and mental health. So as was said in the introduction, there are very few opportunities for education, for training. All of this has effects on a person's mental health. Okay. COVID has seen a whole lot of financial insecurity. And this financial strain, the increased exposure to violence, the food insecurity linked to poverty, combined with a reduced access to social safety nets, such as food bank, income support, education support, all increase the likelihood of people developing mental health problems. Now, if I take just one example from the things I've listed, food insecurity or malnutrition, something that you are discussing in this summit, is a risk factor for both mental and physical health. Apart from the immediate result of undernutrition, the mental health aspects of it are unrelenting distress, anxiety, shame, powerlessness, and guilt. This means that malnutrition or food insecurity is linked to a higher probability of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, and anxiety. Now, what happens if all of this takes place? It means that healthcare costs are increased for that person, and it means that person then has a higher chance of slipping into poverty. Now I'll tell you that those who already have mental health issues are at most at risk of social drift, which means that mental ill health increases a person's exposure to economic shocks and spurs their fall into poverty. Now, I already said that Indian youth are at the highest risk of suicide. It is a big concern. Now I'll tell you that most people who do have mental health concerns face barriers in availing proper education and finding good jobs and in getting their civil rights. So now if we have to look at engaging with mental health, we have to shift to an intersectional and intersectoral approach, and to look at mental health as really connected to compromised education, gender inequality, physical ill health, violence, and other global challenges. Now, such an approach is called a psychosocial approach to mental health. And what does that really mean? It means that our social context influences and interacts with the psychological. Now, what is the psychological? It's our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our reactions. So if I look at mental health psychosocially, my interventions and plans should lead to better mental health outcomes. And those interventions and plans should always be linked to housing, education, food security, legal support, and skill building. So what I'm saying to you is that it's not ever going to be enough for us to just look at mental health services, but we must be looking at linkages to services that support physical health, livelihoods, shelter, and social inclusion. Now, this is, I understand, one of the themes of the summit, One Health, right? So I'm going to say that we need to address both the social and the economic conditions that affect mental health. Poor mental health is both a cause and a consequence of poverty, compromised education, gender inequality, physical ill health, and violence. Now, what are some of the ways in which to break this down? It sounds very huge as I'm talking about it right now, right? It sounds like a very hard problem to solve. But again, I'll just give you one example on how to solve it. I just said that mental health is very connected to physical health. I'll give you an example. Now, depression has been shown to really affect people's usage of antiretroviral medication. That is, those who live with HIV/AIDS are more susceptible to depression. And so if I want those persons to have better physical health, mental health care and treatment must be integrated in HIV/AIDS plans. Okay, now if I talk about diabetes and heart disease, a person's diabetes symptoms can worsen their mental health conditions. And at the same time, mental health conditions are a risk factor for developing diabetes and heart conditions. In fact, people with severe mental illness die on average 15 to 20 years earlier than other people. And that's primarily due to cardio disease, respiratory disease. So what are some of the ways in which to do this easily? And awareness and knowledge of mental health needs to be built into physical care systems, especially at primary levels. Linking mental and physical health systems by delivery or support will also ensure better mental health outcomes. Partly, there is a big data gap where mental health meets physical health. And of course, I think critically, peer support programs, and here I'm looking at all the youth in the room, and family support programs can critically support physical health interventions and mental health interventions. So what are some of the lessons that need to inform some of this work if we start to work on it? One is nothing about us without us. And any expert intervention should be situated along peer groups, networks, and allying communities. So now I'm going to talk to the youth advocates in the room. Do you think there are some lessons that we can learn from each other on increasing political momentum? And how can we accelerate progress for marginalized communities? One, we really must look at lived experience. And so I'm going to talk about something that is, I think, very connected to all the youth in the Indian Himalayan region, which is climate change and mental health, climate disasters and mental health. Now, it's very important to talk directly to those who are at the brunt of it, who face the most of it, and to support their voices in this global conversation on climate change. Now, especially for youth, many youth have reported world over a sense of anger, feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious about the future of our planet. Now, this is being called eco-anxiety. And it seems that young people are particularly affected by it. Okay, especially seeing why is this? Because you're seeing the effects of climate change firsthand, or even if you're seeing it on the news, if you have been through it before, it triggers feelings of loss and distress about the way our homelands and ways of life are changing. Now, these events are unpredictable and highly destructive, and they cause significant mental distress. In fact, research indicates that such distress is 2 to 3 times more prevalent in disaster-affected communities than in the general population. According to a study of climate disaster survivors from 80 countries, 25% of those survivors reported that their distress affected their ability to perform everyday tasks for many years afterwards. Now, despite evidence of impact of climate on mental health, disaster response approaches have not traditionally included mental health. And they've opened.
Hello. Sorry, Raj, I think you've been put on mute. Could you please?
Oh, sorry. I don't know why.
No, it was a technical problem on our end. Sorry.
Okay. So I don't know what you all heard last, but I was talking about the intersections of climate change and mental health and why it's especially important for youth from the Indian Himalayan region. And I was giving you an example. Cyclone Fani devastated Odisha, and there were some early warnings and evacuations which helped to prevent large-scale casualties. But because a region like Odisha has repeated devastation due to climate change, we had put in place a program with one of our partners, BNI, to look at building linkages between government services, community organizations in mental health and disaster response. And that helped in a couple of different ways. Because at a time when there is a climate disaster, community volunteers were already ready and prepared to work with government systems to get support, to reestablish community support structures and self-help groups that were temporarily disrupted. Now, I think this might be an especially interesting model for the Indian Himalayan region to look at, and especially in terms of youth participation. So I spoke about advocacy, and again, this is something very important for youth to take up, because rises in temperatures, rises in the sea level, frequent and extreme weather and climate events influence mental health directly and indirectly. There is loss and damage of home and property. There is crop and livestock damage. Of course, physical health systems get disrupted. There is migration, and witnessing these changes has psychological and emotional impacts. There is clear PTSD. People who are actually already facing mental health conditions are more vulnerable to those effects. So I'm going to ask the youth in the room to advocate for meaningful interventions that actually look at the win-win benefits of improving mental health and emotional well-being associated with taking actions on climate change and disasters. Part of this is really a collaborative research and more work in your region to understand the true impact and talk about appropriate strategies. And finally, to really look at key stakeholders, to advocate, to do some knowledge sharing, and to build youth networks for support and action on this. So I think my time is up, so I'm going to end here, but happy to talk about it more in questions.
Thank you so much, Raj. It was such an insightful talk, especially about the psychosocial support that is really needed. I think everybody looks at it. I mean, I don't know as of now, but at least during disasters, as you said, they talk a lot about medicinal approach. So I think psychosocial support is something that is really important. So I would like to request the participants, if you have any questions, please do unmute. You can ask your questions, you can put it up on the chat box. So while everyone is sort of asking, Raj, I have a question for you. So, during, as I was already saying, during a disaster, they have a sort of a form that is filled. They go around filling these forms, and all the boxes are sort of checked because, they are going through a sort of distress. They are going through a lot of, because, maybe the breadwinner has died, or so they don't really need medicines but psychosocial support. So in a situation as large as a disaster, when say an earthquake hits and a lot of people are impacted, then like how can we work towards sort of identifying, like the form is wrong in a lot of ways, but how do we sort of identify then the people who actually need psychosocial support, or a medicinal approach?
So first, it's an excellent question. Now, typically, what's the kind of model for disaster response? It's been made for the plains, not for hilly regions. Okay, we know that already, because simply, as you said, some camps are set up, some medicines are given, and then goodbye, right? So how would we do this differently? One is the moment that we go hyper local and we build some knowledge and kind of advocacy and community based work in this, people who live in their communities generally tend to know much better who is in need of what. That, okay, this auntie living in this house on this street requires XYZ support, right? And so I'm going to say that if we want a sustainable disaster response, it is something that we have to equip communities to do, okay? And what are the ways in which to do this? I'll just give you the example of the Odisha thing in a little more detail. Because Orissa faces disasters, climate disasters, we decided to take a proactive approach and trained persons who live within communities to become volunteers. So they received training on psychosocial first aid, but alongside that, training on how to link that psychosocial first aid with essential government services, with welfare schemes is critical. So now what happened was that the volunteers lived very much within the communities that they were serving. They understood the communities well. They knew how to provide culturally accessible support, and they were able to work directly with families and individuals. So they were actually trained to mobilize other community members as well to take ownership of disaster response efforts. And part of this is really looking at training community volunteers to also be sensitive to social inequalities and social power structures, right? Which means you have to work with formal and informal local leadership. You have to build some support groups within the communities. And then what happens is, instead of relying only on external support, the community begins to respond collectively to its own needs. I'm not saying that community should be responsible for everything. The government has an important role to play, and they do have to provide essential services and benefits, but the linkages have to be made from within the communities. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yes, we have a few more coming in, so I'll read it out for you. So Supriya is asking, what are the kind of educational reforms being made in the kids' curriculum in India for mental health? Just trying to understand where we stand in terms of psychosocial support.
This is an excellent question. I'm very proud and happy to say that one of the members of IMI, DLR Prerna, actually runs, I would say, one of the best models on psychosocial support for children and adolescents in the country. And the idea is, kids spend, 6-7 hours of their daily existence in schools. Well, not now, thanks to COVID, but it's very important that schools are also a place of affirmation for youth. And so the DLR Prerna program, for example, looks at working with teachers to provide that mental health support, but also looks at teachers building linkages outside the school with parents, with communities. And I think in terms of overall in India, the movement on kind of psychosocial support in education systems has been, I think, slow. Unfortunately, it's limited to more social, emotional learning. Now, what does that mean? The focus is on getting better marks and on bunking school less, or on bunking college less. But a lot remains to be done. A big important part of this is the digital divide. And again, in hilly regions, accessibility to internet, accessibility to devices to allow you to go to school and college is critical. So that is very much a part of a mental health or a psychosocial response, and those linkages need to be made.
Thank you so much. So the next question is by Deeptanshu. What do you think are the key steps that you think the country needs to take to improve psychosocial support? Right now, when I talk to any friends or family, they are psychology students. They often say they don't think it's a viable vocation. How do you think this could be rectified?
So I'll go back to just the Mental Health Care Act. Now it says that mental health care is a right for every citizen in this country. Part of that is actually forcing, or let's say advocating with the government to set up state mental health authorities, state mental health review boards, because today every district should be having a hospital with a psychiatrist there. Now the government has not made that much movement on this because they don't know that this is important for people. So one idea is really to push the government, because there is still a long way to go. I'll also tell you that governments, all governments, central and state, have budgets for the district mental health program. Those budgets largely go unused. So we really need to advocate more with our political leaders to put that money in, and that in itself will start to create, I think, more of a vocation where this is concerned.
So the next question is by Rohit. The health service providers are often overwhelmed with providing critical health care in case of any emergency. Then how can they make time for psychosocial support with limited manpower and response phase?
So I think that's where, I had mentioned that it's very critical to have expert intervention, to have trained community intervention, and to have trained peer support. The good thing with mental health is that we don't always need a psychiatrist or a psychologist to provide mental health support. Also, in terms of the linkages of physical health and mental health, right? So in case the providers are already burdened, and of course it is true, we've seen it during COVID, the linkages are very important to look at. It's very important to build the community resources. And I think that answers the previous question as well. One of the largest programs that we run covers one whole district in Gujarat, and it covers, the whole population. That's about, I think, I can't remember, but services were provided to about 17,000 people in a year, okay, who lived with mental health conditions. And how was that done? It was done largely through community-based volunteers who were trained. The paid people on the project are two. And I'll share a video in the chat, actually. So yeah, that's my answer to this question.
Great. Does anyone else? You can unmute yourself as well. You can ask.
Hello, ma'am. I had a small question.
Sure.
You spoke a bit about eco-anxiety and like, do you think, it's just my personal opinion, but do you think that like if we channelize our energy to actually do something for the environment, will that help with the eco-anxiety? And that's it.
Absolutely. I mean, there are the linkage between, I think, climate change, eco-anxiety, and mental health is so strong that action on either of the two, but especially action on climate change, is going to have a beneficial effect on you, because part of it is the helplessness that you're feeling. Eco-anxiety is very much linked to the helplessness you feel about the way the earth is being affected, the way your traditional home is being affected. So action on it will definitely help.
We have another question, but I think this is a sort of a statement and not a question. So Natasha says that she's recently moved from mainland Kalimpong to Pedong town, which is a scattered rural area belonging to Kalimpong district. And the last monsoon, we had 3 days of very heavy rain, and there were landslides which impacted a lot of houses of the villagers here. And there was an incident where an old person was living alone and was washed away by the landslide. So from the ones we saw, the remains, including children, they described it as a body being torn to pieces with limbs being in multiple areas. So the main question is that how do we help such remote areas with mental health to deal with such incidents where they witness so much?
I'm sorry that that happened, and it's extremely distressing to hear. And it really, I have to say that the research definitely backs this up, because psychological impacts from climate disasters exceed the impact of physical injuries by 40 to 1. Now, what you are describing is, again, evidence that PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, really heavily impacts those who live in areas that experience the effects of climate change. Now, what are some of the ways to deal with it? It's really, I would have to say, building a grassroots community-based support by doing it beforehand, and advocating the government to link up properly with essential services and the social safety nets, not just related to mental and physical health, but also disaster response, livelihoods, education.
So thank you so much. I think there aren't any more questions, but if I could quickly ask one question as well.
Sure.
So I mean, as you were talking about community, based, but we also see a lot of stigmas that are there against mental health in communities. So how can we sort of, I mean, how can we depend on them wholly, in this one?
So, part of the stigma in communities is the way that we talk about mental health. It becomes very biomedical, it becomes very like jargonistic, and it becomes kind of foreign, right? But what if I spoke about mental health as distress? What if I spoke about mental health as I'm feeling terrible because I'm seeing violence because my neighbor is hitting their partner, right? And so I'm going to say that common mental health stressors, and especially when it comes to disaster times, everyone feels, what are the words? We don't say that, oh, I'm feeling terribly depressed. Do I use the word chinta? Maybe. Do I use the word bhoy? Maybe. Now I don't speak a lot of the languages, and so I don't know what would be the words in your language, but the idea is really to use culturally accurate words to describe, because again, diagnostic systems are just that. The expert view is just that. There are also community ways, traditional systems of dealing with distress. So I find that the moment that it's depathologized, the conversation becomes much easier. And if you take a look at the video I've shared in the chat, it'll give you an idea of how it can be re-articulated to be a little less stigmatizing.
So thank you so much, Raj. It was such an insightful session, and I think we all took away a lot. So thank you so much.
I'm just going to add the article in the chat
Yes,
about
sure.
what
Please.
disaster response was like in Orissa. Thank you.
So now we have a sort of a discussion with the youth. You are welcome to stay, but if you would like to leave, that is also okay. But we will be having, so we did a few pre-summit activities. I think there are a lot of members in the participants as well. And if not, then Abhishek will be giving an introduction to all the events that we did before the summit. And today we will be discussing about how we can take this forward. How can we, as the youth representatives, how can we take the summit forward? So I would like to invite Abhishek to set the context and introduce our pre-summit activities. Thank you, Raj, again.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank Raj for the wonderful talk on mental health. And yeah, my question about eco-anxiety was also pretty much answered. So thank you so much, ma'am. I'm going to share my screen and give a brief introduction to what the youth activities were. So is my screen visible for everyone?
Yes, it's visible.
Thank you. I'll just present this slide. Okay, so as most of us know, the theme for this year's SMDS was One Health Response, making our mountains resilient. So about the One Health Response, we had 3 subthematics, and the youth were pretty much engaged in all of them. All of the activities were very productive, and the results that come out of them were really productive and insightful. So the first subthematic was zoonosis, and for the zoonosis subtheme, we had digital media surveillance for zoonotic diseases, and they have come out with a really insightful database of zoonotic diseases across the Indian Himalayan region, and they have also prepared a heat map. So that was really great. And the next sub-theme was food, actually sustainable food systems across the Indian Himalayan region. And we had done 2 activities. The first was called Spotlight on Local Markets. And it was actually, we had mapped the local food markets across the Indian Himalayan region and put them into Google My Maps. And if you are on Hubilo platform, you can just go and check the map out. The next activity was a survey. It was actually a rapid assessment survey on the changing food patterns and how it's impacting the local food culture. It was called Food on Our Plates, and we had 250 plus individual entries for this, and the results also were very insightful. I can't say that it was good, because we learned that the supermarkets are rising and the local food markets are coming down. So yeah, even the results for this are on our Hubilo platform. The next sub-theme was biodiversity and ecosystem management. And for that, the youth activity was a case study of the best practices of the community-based biodiversity conservation and ecosystem management from the Indian Himalayan region. So the outcomes for that is they had documented the current challenges, the youth perspectives, and the role of the youth in biodiversity and ecosystem management. So after this, we will actually break out to unite our perspectives. But before that, I think so we have a poll on just knowing like where we come from, and it's like a small icebreaker poll. So I think Shalini will share the poll in the Google. Yeah, it's right here.
Hello, Abhishek, can you hear me?
Yes, Shalini,
Okay.
audible.
Yes. So the answers have already come in. I hope every one of you have got this on your screen. For the ones on your phone, if it is not available there, you can just type in your answers in the chat box. So which region, the first poll is, which region do you belong to? So we have three options. First is the Eastern Himalayas. Second is the Western Himalayas and others. We've got 85%, yes, 79% from the Eastern Himalayas. We've got none from the Western Himalayas, and we've got 20% from others, but it's still shuffling. So yes, we've got one entry from the Western Himalayas. Second poll is, which sector do you work with? So we see a lot of students, we see a lot of people from non-government sector. There are a few from business sector as well, and like 5 entries from others. The third one is your gender. So we see a lot of like, there's not much difference. 57% of you are males and 45% females. And then we see one entry from others. So I guess everybody has given their answers for the poll. Shall we end the poll now, Shreya?
Yeah, I think we can move on to the next one.
Okay, okay.
Thank you so much, Shalini, for that. So now we'll be moving. And please to stay. We will have some really insightful discussions in those breakout rooms on how, we as the youth participants, as the youth delegates, how can we take this summit forward? What can we participate? How can we participate and, make a change? So do stay. And we have some questions that need answering, and it would be really nice to hear from everyone. So I think we can move on to the breakout rooms. Please wait for some time. We are just figuring it out. Okay, so while we're figuring out the technicalities of the breakout room, let me just give you a little introduction on what's going to happen. So we have designed a few questions at, so there is a regional level question, how you can take the summit forward in your own regions. And this is not very specific just for the Indian Himalayan region, though that is the discussion. Mountains are everyone, all of it, it is just not ours, or, so we would like to see how we as a youth representative from all over India can, in our own way, support the mountains. Then we will look at it from IHR level, and IHR is the Indian Himalayan region. So from region to the Indian Himalayan region to also look at what is happening at an international level. Events that are happening, the COP26 event that just happened. So we will be talking a little bit about that as well. So that is what's really going to happen. And we will have about 20 to 30 minutes of discussion. And after that, we will have a little bit of a presentation. So yeah, I think it's done, the breakout rooms. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Abhishek.
Hello, hello. So the house is 7 people strong here, and it's fine. So like, are all of us from Darjeeling, or is anyone from outside Darjeeling out here?
Yeah, I'm from Sikkim.
Okay, okay, great.
From Sikkim.
Oh, good.
Okay, I'll share my screen. No, this though I shared. Okay, is my screen visible right now?
Yes, yes, particularly. You can see your screen.
Okay, great, great. So I think so I'll stop my video. It's distracting. Okay, as Shreya already said, right, well, we had prepared some of the questions which are based according to the theme, and yeah, the questions are like we have said, tried to encompass all the different aspects of the One Health. Along with, like, we have divided some questions in regional, Indian Himalayan region, and global level. So for the global level questions, like we have took reference from some of the global summits like COP26 and the Youth Summit of the World Health Organization. So like we want to discuss, like, Amite, we as the youth from Indian Himalayan region, how can we take it forward? So without wasting much time, okay, the video is being recorded. The session is being recorded.
So we have to give inputs on these questions.
Yes, yes. But please, I can't see my screen. Okay, is the video being recorded?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. And Rohit is saying that he's from UP. So yeah, welcome for the discussion. Okay, so like the first question out here is the importance of a region-specific youth committee. Like we come from the Indian Himalayan region, and the whole objective of having this integrated mountain initiative is actually that many of the policies in India, it's just focus on the mainland. It's relevant for the plains, for the landscape, and for the settlement pattern of the plains, but for the mountains, some of the things doesn't work. So having a committee which is region specific is like very important. That's how IMI was found, and that's how we are here today discussing everything. But about is it important, like, do you think it is important to have a region specific committee, especially for the youth? So what are your inputs on this?
Hello.
Yeah, hello, you're audible.
So I think that in the Himalayan regions, due to the there is I observed from the various media reports while working on case studies that there is a lack of awareness. Uh, for example, I worked on zoonotic diseases, and I observed that people don't know about many zoonotic diseases like rabies and even malaria also, and that really affects the prevention and control measures that are adopted for the diseases. And the second thing is that there is no wide media coverage about many of the states like Tripura and remote other states like Nagaland. So a good media coverage will also help in that, and that it will also promote research activities and uh, data collection also it will help. And also that by participation of youth, we are really and for really strengthening the democratic structure, and having the people voices will always help in ensuring that community is participating in various issues like ecology and zoonotic diseases.
Thank you, Rohit, for your input. Uh, yeah, there's not just in the IHR, but we feel that throughout India, like, yeah, especially in the IHR, like in yesterday's discussion, also the experts were telling that there's a lack of awareness about both the zoonotic diseases, their preventions and their symptoms, everything. And yeah, they also emphasized on the role of the youth, because the Indian youth are like the most popular, the most educated. If we look at the varied age structures, like the youth are obviously the most educated mass. So it's on our soldiers also to like educate the people and do the awareness, education, and communication work. So if anyone wants to add that, like, of course, having a very strong regional youth committee would help in our work if we are to do the awareness and education work. Anyone has any thoughts on that?
So yeah, what I think is like exposure sensitization is needed in order to understand all these key issues in this Himalayan region, in my opinion. So like where as a youth we can undertake more research on various studies, which is like very important, no, to fill the of gap of research or anything, like we are talking about zoonosis diseases and all. Even like me as a social science background, I don't even know what was zoonosis diseases and all. So from this summit I came to know about it. So yeah, just like exposure and summit like this can really help, i I feel.
Yes,
Mm,
Tim, yeah, that's absolutely correct, I feel. And the
yeah.
like the work, we can look at IMI itself. No, it's a strong committee, so we are able to meet every year and do SMDS. We are able to do the youth summit, the youth discussions. We are able to do the mountain legislators meet, because there is a specific region specific committee.
Mm.
But like a little more clarity on what the youth actions would be. Like if if suppose tomorrow there is a Indian Himalayan youth uh, committee which is found, so what would that actually add to? What would that help in? please everyone, just no one's wrong, no one's right. We are just
Yeah.
having opinions out here, and the youth opinions are really important, because like we are the future, and if they don't listen to us, who will they listen to, right? So please everyone, we are 8 people, or 2 of them have spoken. I'm waiting for the others. Please add your inputs. Isha, you have something to say? Please. Isha was one of the youth in the DHI group, so who have worked in. Isha, which group were you in biodiversity, right? Okay, I think so. This question is an interesting for. So let's move to the other question. So the other question is how to take forward at an IHR level. So what we mean to say out here is like, even in the IHR, we have a lot of diversity, right? Like if you look at Leh and Ladakh, they are cold deserts. But if you look at uh, Tripura, it's like it's somewhat similar to alluvial plains. If you look at Darjeeling, it's in the eastern Himalayas, and it has very temperature and pressure conditions. So it's like a diverse semi-tropical forest. So yeah, what I'm saying is not just I'm just saying geographically, but even at a cultural level, even at a level of uh, even at the level of organizations and administrations, the IHR is very different. The states and union territories of IHR are very different from each other. So like if we have a regional committee, so for example, if we have a youth committee in Sikkim, so and if we have some work being done by the committee there, how will we take it forward and at an IHR level? So okay, let me start. So what I feel, what I have experienced right now, having a strong network is really important. So please add to this, like, what do you think is needed to take forward the actions that we are doing in our region at an IHR level?
I think that youth committees can act as a pressure group for the government and the health authorities, and they can also help in activities in which community engagement is required. Like in today itself, we talked about mental health interventions. So youth committees can also participate in ensuring that mental health is not mental health support is provided to the affected communities.
Okay, thank you so much, Rohit. Yeah, you're correct. Like the statement I said in the beginning, we are the future, and like they have to listen to us. No, and they are also listening to us. Like in the whole SMDS, we have a separate segment for the youth only. So I think so. We are a pressure group, and we must act as a pressure group actively. And about the peer support on mental health, yeah, that's exactly needed. So in the Western countries, what we do is like for any small issue, we have to go to the consultant, we have to go to a therapist. But here in my, like, it's a personal opinion again, like first we speak to our friends. Like we can't speak to our parents about some of the issues because like they care for us, but like some people can, but mostly it's not relevant to speak everything to our parents, to share everything with them. But the first group of people like who come in the like who play this role of being supportive in mental issues and emotional issues are our friends. So peer support for mental health is really important. Anything else to add on this? Please people speak up, or I will be write the youth resolution only if three of us talk. We have Isha, Natasha, Prikshadi, RP, Yogesh. Pema, you want to add something on this? Like, how will we take up the actions which are being done in our regional level at an IHR level?
I'm out of. So what I was thinking is like we were talking before, like working in a ground level and all. No,
Yes,
so by allocating youths in local level to understand what are the key issues to be taken into consideration and all. So yeah, I think this could be one, but I don't know. I'm
yes. Okay,
allocating.
can you come again? I didn't quite understand. Like,
So yeah, allocating youths at a local level or working with the stakeholders to understand what are the key issues to be undertaken
okay. Like,
in an IHR level. Yeah, areas.
yeah. What you're trying to say is like, we must have people in the ground level,
Yeah.
but they must also be engaged with all the stakeholders. Like, for example, if we are like, there's some biodiversity issue at a very local level,
Yeah.
youth must be engaged with the local people as well as the larger stakeholder, like the
Yeah.
by authority which is responsible for biodiversity conservation in a state, in a national level. Okay, yeah, I get
Yeah,
what you're saying.
as a middleman, no. So
Yeah. I'm getting. They must connect.
yeah.
The word alone. Connect the local. Please, others also come in. So we only have half an hour for this discussion. And I hope Natasha reaches her home within the time and then actively participates. Till then, let's move to the next question. So this is a question at an international level. So like, what do you feel are the spaces which are available for youth at an international level?
Please, you be the flag bearer.
Yeah, to be the flag level bearer. So what do you feel, yeah, about is the opportunity? Do we have spaces available at an international level? That's my question. Like, first, like, we would love.
Yes, because due to the uh, widespread of internet, youth can voice their opinion and they can,
Great point.
yeah, and they can leverage social media
Yeah.
very well because they are well versed in technology than the older generations.
Yeah, great point. Like, the youth are much more tech savvy. So like, we are right now at a short notice, all of you have joined this discussion, and which is a cross, like, it's a national level discussion, right? So even for international issues, international organizations and international events, we can be much more participatory than the other generations, because technology comes easy to us and we can make the use of the world web much properly. Yeah, great point, Rohit. Thank you so much. Others also please add to this. We are 6 people now, but please add to this. Hmm. Have any of you ever been a part of youth conference, an international conference or an international like event?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even I haven't been. No. I have been a part of one. So this is a Asia Pacific fellowship which I was a part of, and yeah, and that was due to like internet only, as Rohit said. So I think so. This internet pretty much internet and technology pretty much rounds up this question. Let me just quickly jot in.
Yeah, if we are talking about the spaces, then youth are nowadays also working with international organizations, and they are working on more specifically on case studies, which just do not require uh, uh, rigorous research work, but those case studies are based on their own experiences and opinions. So for mostly the case studies which are localized, the youth can play a role. Then they have spaces available for that in many conferences and etc.
So we are basically speaking about research work here.
Yeah, research work also, and also project work. There is a problem in any area about, for example, um, wastewater sewage treatment. There is a problem in a particular city. Then youth can combine as a team, and then they can search for solutions for that.
Okay, yeah, great point. So I think so we must round up this one, right, and move to the next question, which is again a regional question. And I think so Rohit will be much more able to give the answers for this. How can youth play a role in data collection at a regional level? If you are doing international surveys, like there used to be this census every year. No, not every year, like in every 5 years, which collected the demographic data, right? If there is like data collection projects by the national government, what role can the youth play in those processes?
Well, there is always lack of people for collecting data. There are many people which are up for analyzing and processing data, but data collection is a very tedious job, and then it requires more number of people as compared to the people which are analyzing. So
Yeah.
due to their large number of youth, and due to their lack of engagement, less engagement in other activities, youth can always volunteer in data collection. And for example, in zoonotic diseases, there is a challenge for getting the morbidity and mortality rate of the various zoonotic diseases, and due to which epidemiological studies accuracy is affected. So youth can help in uh, in getting the correct data and helping on in those studies.
Okay. To sum up what you have said, there are much more there are more data collectors required than data analysts. Like currently, those people, the number of people collecting data, we require more of them. And like youth can already be volunteering. And also, I would like to add that again, being more technologically enabled will help us in we don't have to fill up like we used to do for the census, going door to door and having this paper printout. Like it can be done digitally, right? Like for all the youth activities, there were major data collection points. Like for the zoonosis, we made this heat map for zoonotic diseases across the IHR. And for food systems, we collected the information about the local food markets, and they were all done digitally. So no printouts were required, nothing. It was done through email and Google Drive. And yeah, I think so. being technologically enabled helps in this. Okay, anyone coming in? Please, it was just Rohit and me speaking. Others also.
I had actually similar ideas. So yeah,
Yeah, Pim.
collecting data through technology and all. Nowadays, it's very easy. So for citizen science, there is an app called iNaturally, so people can easily collect data and upload it like that. So as a youth, we can generate some easy app to collect data and also.
Yeah, it's much more easier than before, right?
Yeah.
I think so. This also pretty much answers our question. Let's move to the next question, which is at an IHR level again. And like, how can the youth advocate about the difficulty in waste management in the mountain landscapes? To give a brief introduction, the landscape and the old terrain and the even the household distribution, like the population density, is very different from for the plains and for the mountains. And like door-to-door waste collection is a very difficult thing to achieve in the mountains because there are steep stairs and the cab can't move everywhere. So we see a lot of people throwing waste just into the streamlets out here. And like, but again, the waste management is difficult in the mountains, but our habits of generating waste is similar. Like we are also opting for supermarkets. The hotels are giving PET bottles like anything. Street vendors are selling in single-use plastics. So how can the youth advocate? Because again, this is again about understanding, because our understanding about this issue is way more polished than the other generations. So how can we act as advocates for this issue in the IHR level? So this is in IHR level because we are talking about the mountain landscape, but like we can start with our homes. No, how can we start advocating about this issue? Please give your inputs on this.
Video blog may help, I think.
Videography, okay. So can you elaborate a bit?
For example, that people in the sitting in the offices do not know the hardships in waste collection, right? So
Yes,
they
sir.
are not aware of those issues. So if we make a video and a sort of a blog while going to the site ourselves and showing them these are the hardships, then that may help.
Others also, please give your opinions on this.
Yeah, it is pretty hard. No.
Yeah, it's difficult because waste is maybe the last thing we think of.
Yeah, we can start by being an example. Like instead of buying these water bottles, we as a individual set an example as we can take our own water bottles wherever we go. It may help in reducing some plastic waste, water bottle waste.
Yeah, set an example
Yeah.
of reusing habits. Yeah, that's really important because we know some of the solutions. If the whole issue seems so difficult. Mostly it's only about convenience, like carrying a bottle around wouldn't be as convenient as buying a 20 rupees Bisleri. But yeah, it would save a lot of waste, and it would at the end, it would save us only, I'd say. And Priksha has added to the chat box that advocating or education, uh, the common mass about eco bricks for plastic waste management and vermicompost for the disposal of kitchen waste. So about eco bricks, I'd like to say that please, we have to stop calling those PET bottles, stop with multi-layer plastic eco bricks, because they aren't eco in any ways. Because I just would deeper into this. Okay, we are looking at a production level crisis. Like a company, say PepsiCo from America, is coming to India and it's importing plastic from China and selling their chips in the Himalayas. And they are designing the plastic in such a way that we have to throw it away after one single use. So unless and until there is reduction, stuffing plastic in bottles won't help. And that's actually bad, I'd say, because then the companies have a alibi to get out of it. Like why should we, they can say, like, whenever we advocate for reduction, they can say, like, why should we go for reduction? You can just stuff it into plastic bottles and call it eco bricks. And again, the eco bricks aren't that useful because they can just be used to make some stuff. They can't be used for building houses because they don't give proper thermal insulation, they don't stick to cement well, and they are not heat proof. So yeah, about composting, yes, composting is a big solution, because more than 80% of the waste that comes out of households are actually decomposable waste. And yeah, again, they are easily manageable at home, but we are sending them to landfills and overburdening our system. But if we start managing at least the wet waste ourselves, that would relieve the household. So I'll put compostings, but please rethink about the plastic bricks. Other suggestions, please?
Yeah. Protest can also help in either offline or online mode.
Can you please elaborate, who would be the target audience for the protest? Like, we would protest against the companies, or to the policymakers, or to the common citizens to change their ways? Like, what do you think is important?
So protest is mostly against the government authorities, but as you rightly said, it can also be against the multinational companies, because they are also contributor to waste, and they are generator of waste, and they are not managing waste properly, and it is the responsibility of government authorities to hold them accountable. So ultimately, protest has to be targeted on the authorities only, but in some cases, multinational corporations and other corporations are also liable for protesting, and it can be done either offline while getting organized in a group of people, or it can be done in the form of a petition, like online petition kind of thing.
Hello, I've finally reached down. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, Natasha.
Hi.
Natasha, you're audible.
Hi, everyone. Yeah. Oh my God. I literally attended this entire summit while traveling from Pedong to Kalimpong. I just reached down, and it's actually a miracle that I got. Oh my God. It's a miracle that I was actually able to attend it, because there's no internet connection throughout the route, no? So yeah, thanks for waiting up.
Yeah, the force was
Anyway,
strong.
how many of us are there right now? I mean, there's 6 participants.
Yeah, 6 of us are discussing.
Is Shreya there? Shreya Gurung, are you still alive?
Shreya is moderating another group.
Oh, all right, okay. Anyway, thanks for waiting up. And yeah, actually, I kind of missed out on a couple of things. Like the voice was kind of breaking in between, so
Okay.
I may have missed out a couple of points, but on a general, I'm just going to speak on a general scale right now. So from the time that I attended this summit, the main issue was, regarding mental awareness and any kind of like awareness regarding environmental issues and the issues that we're actually talking about right now. So I feel like I mentioned in my message earlier, since I'm based in a rural area right now, I've just recently moved to Padang. So what I've seen throughout my time here is that I mean, I've been here for let's say a few months now, but even in that time, what I've noticed is the gap that were uh, all the ideas that we're discussing right now, and the level at which the rural areas are at this current current time, the gap in between is way too huge, right? I mean, we are in between where we're able to understand both ways to a certain amount, but the rural areas, and we're talking about MNCs, and then the gap in between is way too big, right? I mean, the issue that I put up in the message earlier about the landslide, and then the locals having witnessed the entire thing, no? So that was just a small example of the kind of life that they're living, one day they see a body that's mangled completely by landslide, and next day they're like, all right, that just happened. So so in a place like that, how do we bring mental awareness and environmental issues and certain things like that? Sorry. Hello? Hello?
Okay, yeah. I understood what you are saying. Then actually, this is also a very important. Sorry, am I audible? My mic is not moving.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is also a very important place where the youth can come in, because even if you go to the rural areas, the youth are, I wouldn't say they are more enabled, but they are at least educated. They can surf to the internet, and
Yeah.
having a youth network which bridges the gap between the urban and the rural and the semi-urban, and it works towards inclusive development. There are some things, for example, for Darjeeling and Kalimpong, we don't have grassroots democracies. The panchayats are dysfunctional out here, but even for the other states, there may be schemes. If we go to the website of the disaster management, and I'm sorry, the whole disaster relief department, if you go to the website, there may be schemes about landslides. For the blocks, there may be schemes about landslide, but those people in the rural areas are the people who aren't so enabled with technology, who don't know how to speak for themselves, who advocate for themselves in government offices. uh, they can lag in this, but again, the youth can play an important role. So if there is a very strong youth committee inside the village, so they can help in translating this information to them. Yeah, अभी इस तो scheme
Yeah.
और
So here there's again another small thing, right?
yeah.
So the thing about youth, volunteering. So there are people like you, me, right? Maybe there are 1 out of 10 people who are studying this environmental disasters on
Yeah.
a on your career level, right? Other people like me, I'm giving myself as an example right now. I mean, this is my first time attending the summit. I mean, I really want to help, but then I have other priorities, right? So this is kind of just I'm trying to give maybe 20% of my time here right now, trying to maybe bring up some change or the other. So I feel like the problem with the youth is that like most of us were very consumed in our own, on our own careers. I mean, like, this is something that we'll have to get hold of youth that can give 100% of their time to uh, bring up these awareness, the volunteering, and go to these rural areas. And we're not just talking about one time thing, right? I mean, these one time things happen a lot in the rural areas, if you ask me. So this has to be something that has to be really constant, like, like weekly things, like weekly seminars that the villagers need to attend to, or something like that. And even so, even when we do have these seminars, life in the village is like completely very different, as compared to how we see it. I mean, right now, Shreyas just sent me this link, and like I just like happened to be traveling, so I just clicked on the link and then I opened it. But then there is like, they have a whole different life where like they're just, how do I put it in words? I mean, you need to be there and you need to be living there to see how the life is there in the rural areas. So what I'm trying to say basically is, like, for us to be volunteering, partly living a life halfway somewhere else, and partly trying to bring up some change, and is like, I feel like that will not be a solution. We need a permanent, maybe resident, or like, permanent group that can bring about a change in these rural areas. They need to be like there constantly. Are you getting my point?
Yeah. What you are saying is like some of the youths actually need to be initiated into full-time social work. They
Yes,
need to be like
exactly.
paid for it, basically. Because
Exactly. And working voluntary full time is not
yeah,
exactly,
like I agree and disagree with you. Like full-time social
Yeah.
workers need to be there, but like those part-time volunteers are the main aspects of the any like non-governmental organization in my
Yes,
experience. Like we call
yes.
up for volunteers and they show up, and the whole event is actually on their soldiers more than us, because we are actually just doing our job, but they
Yeah,
are they are what they are doing the real social work, I feel.
yes. So like what I'm trying to say is, if there's like, one group who can, there needs to be one permanent group of at least, like let's just put up
Mhm.
a number of, let's say,
Yeah.
five who are conducting these research work or these seminars on a regular basis. But then there are plenty of other volunteers who keep coming and going, but then they're doing the same thing every week, so it doesn't really, like, there's just one group who are doing the constant work, but then we're still having the volunteers who are carrying forward the main agenda. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's what's supposed to be there actually. So
Okay.
how, like, I feel like that could be a solution, but how do we bring that about in these rural areas?
Okay, like I have tried to put your points into the question, but like as we have very little time, we need to move to the other questions as well. Okay, as we are now in the discussion full time, let's
uh,
go question by question. Okay, thank
all
you
right.
so much for speaking up, and those were really insightful and valid points out there.
Yeah. Anyway, I've always wanted to, bring this up, but then, like, it was nice that, today I got to attend this.
Okay, so like
Anyway, I might have to leave now because I have
okay,
other
you're not
things
there
to
full
attend
time.
to. So yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you
So
so much for being there
so
part time.
this was just a small, like, this was maybe 2% of the kind of questions that I actually have,
Okay.
right? And since I am based in a rural area, if there's anything that, you guys want to initiate, and any other summits that you want to physically start, you may contact me, because I'm right now working at a foundation, children's foundation, and we have just started functioning there. And there, like, the area that I'm staying in and the foundation is in, it's kind of like, it's still a rural area. I mean, it's still called tribal house out there, because like there's still like small houses out there. So if you guys come up with anything, if you guys want to start up anything, just feel free to contact me, and you can, ask Shreya Gurung also for my contact.
Okay.
And maybe, yeah, we can do something productive. That's what I'm saying. You know, like discussions can happen every now and then, but then I feel like until we go down to the grassroots level and bring up some form of changes, you know, start up something, you know, ignite something. I feel like this will forever just be a discussion topic, you know.
I will put your suggestion into the next question.
Yes.
And we have just 5 minutes left for the breakout room.
All right. I will not take any more time. Anyway, it was nice. It was nice talking with all of you all.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
nice,
much. Thank you so much
day.
for being here.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Let's jump to the next question. Okay, everyone. And please do speak up. It was so good to hear Natasha. Finally, someone speaking, except Pema and Rohit. So the next question is at an international level, and this is a question which came up in the Youth Conference of Parties 26. What role do the youth play in building a climate conscious society? So I'll just put in Natasha's point that we can take the issue at a grassroots level.
For the climate change, youth are the biggest stakeholders because they will be affected more in the future as they are future adults. So they have much lot at stake. So they should work.
Any other points, Rohit? You can feel free to go as long as you want.
Yeah, and the other thing is that while making policies, I think that youth should be engaged because, as I said, they are the biggest stakeholders. So engagement of youth in the policy making is important.
Great point. Others also, please speak up. I request you to speak up.
Youth can also help in collecting data, like they can monitor air quality. And in North India, in Delhi region, I think that air quality is very worsening. So if youth are reporting the data on that, and in data collection, youth can help for climate change.
Yeah, data collection for climate change. We have 5 people, so please, Priksha and Pema, please put in your suggestions on this question. Nothing to add. Okay, that's fine. Let's move to the next question. So this is the last 3 questions are from the sub thematics. So for zoonosis, we have like what kind of media you used at the rural areas in your region. So please, this one everyone needs to speak. Okay, these 3 questions are very important. In rural areas and yes, in rural areas where you come from, what kind of media do people use?
Social medias are the most popular and common.
Social media is really coming up everywhere, rural or urban. Social media. I think so. They still watch television, no?
Yeah.
Because like the youth have moved away from television. Do any one of you watch television news?
No.
Data.
Not anymore.
But I think so in rural areas they still do. I can hear Arnab Goswami screaming from houses. Others, Rohit?
I don't know because I haven't been to northeastern states.
No, from in your region also you are free to share, no?
Yeah, so in the rural areas for the zoonosis, word of mouth is
this
also
is for like this is for data collection for zoonosis. Okay, like in the if there is a breakout of zoonotic disease somewhere, like in what media, putting it into which media will be like more impactful for rural areas? Will it be like printing it in newspapers or putting it in social media or television? What do you think will be the most effective? Rohit, you got
So
me?
meetings also help, rural meetings,
Okay, local level meetings. Okay, great.
local level meetings. And local health doctors, local doctors.
What are they called? They are called basic healthcare centers, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great points here. So the other subthematic we move into is actually biodiversity. And the question out here is that should conservation be participatory or exclusionary? Like, should conservation work be at a community level work? Like everyone is doing their part at a village level, or like only experts, only scientists must be doing conservation work. So what is the youth opinion on this? Quickly, we just have 30 seconds, guys. Please.
Participatory.
Yeah, it must be participatory, right? Newspapers clearly for the last question. No, yeah, newspapers, maybe due to the literacy rate or something. I haven't seen much newspapers in rural areas. The must be participatory. You can you briefly say why they must be participatory in your opinion, Rohit? Anyone else?
Actually, because exclusionary is bad now, we are excluding the youth, and if you are talking about the youth or community, then excluding them is not a good option, never a good option.
Pema, as you work with IHR?
It definitely should be participatory because like youth are the future, let's say like that.
Yeah. Inclusive, I'll just write in. They must be like all the conservation efforts must be very inclusive of the youth, no? Thank you so much, guys. We are finally at the last question. So it's from food systems. The question is like, what role do the youth play in supporting local food markets, and the local economy in general in the era of online shopping?
Help creating a platform for a local farmers
online.
Yeah.
Damn, nice point.
Time out.
That will work, no?
Yeah. Creating a platform for a local farmers. Yeah. And then purchase food directly from them.
Yeah. Rohit, please add.
Sorry, guys. It's okay, Leon.
We ran out of time.
Yeah.
How do I go into that breakout room again?
Shalinidhi, I don't think we can do that, no? Securely we can do that.
Yeah, the breakout room got closed.
Yeah, it got closed.
Yeah, it was going pretty interesting, yeah?
Yeah, it was just getting interesting.
So we can continue, no, if the conversation was interesting. Please do share with us as well, because that would be nice. You can share your screen. Probably we could also add in some points.
Yeah, so
Yeah, the last slide was like,
yeah,
we would,
Can you please share the slide that we prepared, although it's not ready, but like everybody out here can give in their points. So I guess that it will be more of a conglomeration of all your ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so I have the document. I'll open it and I'll share it. Yeah.
I've changed the link sharing to anyone who accesses the link
Yeah.
can see it. So
Let me share this. Okay, so you can see my screen, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of good discussion that has happened here. That's so great. We also had good discussion in our group as well, and I'm sure Abhishek also had. Let's please do add whoever wants to. You want to add some points? Go ahead. I think I'm going to just not talk for about 5-10 minutes while you guys prepare. It's up. It's all to you now. Please do add your arguments, your points, all of that, and I'll just keep my screen sharing on. Or should I stop?
You should put it there, yeah.
Okay, fine, great.
Or what we can do is Diptanshu can share as he will be,
Yeah, fine,
will be
fine.
out of it. No?
So Sikku, I think we'll need to make him the co-host, Deepanshu. Oh, he can share? Okay, so Deep, you can
wait,
share.
share as in like share my screen?
Yeah, share your screen. Wait, I'll stop sharing. Yeah, please do
Um,
share. You guys take the floor, please. I think at least I've been talking a lot. So over to you guys. I'm sure we'll get something really nice. And I will share my slide as well. So maybe you could see some things from there, or my group members could come in. That would be great. Okay, bye guys. Over to you.
Oh, are we going to like present whatever discussion we've had?
We'll give you 10 minutes. So like after 10 minutes, like we'll let you know about your presentation. Yes, but you will be presenting. One of you can volunteer or two of you can volunteer to present. I hope that's fine with everybody, no? Or each group wants their own representation.
So let them add. Let everyone add. Please, everyone who was in the conversation, in the discussions, please add your points. So after 5 to
So do I
9
just like copy paste all their points into the?
yeah, you can probably do that as well.
Yeah.
That'll be great. So if you guys want to present also, you can go ahead. We will see in 5 to 10 minutes.
Share, can you share your slides?
Yeah, it's just a second. There.
We're gonna have to make this smaller.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Deep. I think you've collated all the slides, and I don't think
I
anyone
don't
else.
have your, I mean,
No,
did,
I sent it on the group.
oh, I didn't get
Okay,
that.
sorry. Okay then, because it's been pretty silent. So I was wondering, from each group, we have everything in one slide. So from each group, could one person just nominate themselves and just just give us a small gist about what we talked, just like 2-3 minutes, what we discussed, what discussions happened, did you learn from it, not something like that. So from my group, who is going to, anybody wants to go ahead, or should I nominate someone? Okay, so I see Lian, can you please just in just 2-3 lines, after Deep finishes compiling, will you quickly tell us, what we discussed?
Yes, I think I can try. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So from Abhishek's group, so
I
that
think
would,
Abhishek will be better for explaining in Abhishek's group, in our
no,
group.
he is part of the DHI. We want to hear from you all. We want to hear. Rohit, please do take it. I'm sure you were very active in the group, and if you could just tell us what all you discussed about, that would be great. And
Yes, we have been speaking too much. Please take the floor, guys.
and I guess Deep could go from Shalini's group.
Sure.
Yeah, great. And our rapporteurs would kindly collate all this information and give us. And we have, so basically why we're doing this, let me tell everyone, is that at 6 o'clock today, we have the youth recommendations and way forward. We will be presenting it to all the IMI members, and we would also be trying to come up, trying to get some policy level discussions and what we think is important for our region as the youth community. So this is why we wanted your inputs, we wanted everybody's inputs on how we could take this forward. So that is the main reason. So would be great to hear from the three of you. So once Deep is done, I guess Deep, you could quickly start.
Yeah, I'm
Then
done.
Rohit could go, and after that Lian could go. Thank you so much.
Okay, so you want me to go through each slide, or how is it? How
You
do you
can
want
just tell us
an overall of what our
yeah,
discussion
whatever
was?
you want to. Yeah, you could just tell us. Rapporteurs, please do make a
I
note.
think easier way would be like if you
Yeah.
could go through each slide and three people respectively could talk about their own points. For example, if you go for regional, so one guy from one group could talk about it, second, third, then go to the next slide, do that thing until it ends. No?
Yeah, that's a great
Okay,
idea. Thanks, Suprabhat. Yeah, yeah.
all
Great.
right, we'll go like that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first point was regarding the importance of region-specific youth committees. So from our breakout, from the points that we came up with was that um, niche issues typically don't come out at a macro level, so you need a micro level to deal with all these specific topics. The second was that if it's region specific, then you have the physical presence of those who are contributing. So that's why a region specific youth committee would be super helpful in that. And another thing was that the policy would end up being region specific because they're from the region. And the last point was that youth in general are energetic and they drive change. So they drive innovation as well. And so that's why a region specific youth committee is important. Over to Rohit and sorry, who's the last person? Guys, can someone from Abhishek or
I
Shreya's
think
group?
Rohit, or Suprabhat, who is in Abhishek's group? Could
So we are talking about Abhishek's group now.
yes.
Okay. So we talked on a range of questions that how youth can contribute to various issues. So in the first instance, we talked about what is the importance of region-specific youth committees. We found that there is a lack of awareness about these issues. There is a lack of media coverage, so youth can increase all that, and upliftment of rural areas and bridging the gap of development and capacity building is important, and youth can also contribute to social work. At the IHR level, youth can contribute by building a strong network and creating pressure groups, and also helping in peer support on mental health, and uh, uh, they can connect with local stakeholders as they are the largest stakeholder in these issues. And at the international level, youth have many spaces available, like due to the proliferation of internet, they are tech savvy, so they can contribute to that, and they can contribute in the research and development, research and other projects at the international level. And in the data collection process, youth can really contribute because there is always lack of data collectors, and they can volunteer in that. And youth are technology enabled, so they can leverage the various technologies for data collecting. And about the advocating for waste management in the mountain landscape, we had a discussion on that, and then we came forward with points like we can make a video or a blog, or you can set a personal example by reusing or recycling habits, and for the waste management, and they can promote composting, and they can also protest against the authorities and the MNC which are contributing to waste. In building a climate conscious society, youth can take up the issues at the grassroots level, and as they are the biggest stakeholders, they will are the future adults, so they will be affected very much by climate change, and so they have to play a role. They have no other choice, and they must be included in policy making, as because they are the biggest stakeholder. And in the data collection for climate change, youth can contribute, for example, by collecting data like air quality and other type of data. For the kind of media that are used in the rural area, in the rural region, specifically to zoonosis, we came up with points like social media helps in um, social media and television helps in proliferate in the propagation of ideas related to zoonosis, and local level meeting at the village level. That's how information flows, and basic healthcare centers and local doctors are instrumental in that. And and about the point that should conservation be participatory or exclusionary for specifically to biodiversity, we all agree that it should be participatory, because it cannot be exclusionary, definitely, and we have to include the youth and the other communities also. For the food system, uh, we were discussing like how you can uh, contribute to the local food markets and local economy, especially in the era of online shopping. So it was a really interesting point came out that they can help create the local farmers and other local people and online platform for selling their services, and they can also purchase goods directly from the farmers to contribute to the local economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Um, all right. So do I just go through all the slides then?
I think Lian will also speak because one point is that. Thank you so much, Rohit and Deep. I think the
Am I audible?
Yep.
yes. You're on mute now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Actually, first of all, I'd like to say thanks to everyone. And it's been a really good experience. Actually, this is my first session, like because I was in the field till yesterday. And I just want to mention that it really took some time for us to warm up together. And but yeah, we had a fruitful discussion, and we talk about things like how how youth could really contribute to this in this region, and like the importance of like region specific youth committee. And we feel that like there needs to be transparency, and like for wider membership, and I think there's a lot of underlying nuances in political scenarios within states also. And for that, I think for wider membership, like there needs to be more transparency. And also we talk about we talk about food, local foods, and we think like there needs to be a better platform, like especially for wild eatable food items. And also we talk about delivery system, especially in these times of COVID. And we think there's a lot of scope, so that like this could be like local eatable fruits and vegetables could be more popularized among the youth and like among the masses in general. And lastly, we talk about zero waste, and like how this could be
मलाई चाहिँ मिटिङमा बोलेर आफै छैन रहेछ
and
My
how
friend
this could
called me
be
to this meeting to get link बेच के खुद ही नहीं है
Can you unmute iPhone, please?
and yeah, so well, and yeah, that's about it actually. Like we I think yeah, we really need to have more discussions like this. And hopefully I personally feel that like I mean there needs to be more interaction. And say one of our team members, I'd just like to mention her, like Bamilai. She also wants to like like even for me, I feel like we really need to be conducting more of this often, so that like it's more fluid, like in future and all that. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lian. Yeah, we really had a good discussion, and thanks to Rohit. Rohit also very good summarization and discussion you had. But so I think Deep is the only one who just went through the first slide. I think Lian also pretty much summarized most of the important discussions that we had in the group, and Rohit did that as well. So Deep, if you have any other point you want to add or talk about, or like sort of summarize, we'll take that, and after that we could end. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I really like the discussion in our breakout room as well. Especially I'd like to call out Suprabhat and Shosh. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. But yeah. So some of the other points that we went through were like, I like that our discussion was very grounded in what actions can be taken rather than being more theoretical. So with regards to how to take it forward, we're talking more about how we could have offline events, and then try to get engagement through online channels as well. And then one more point that we discussed was regarding data collection, and how there needs to be an overarching goal, because a lot of data collection is happening, but it's all happening in its own like silos. It's not uh, cohesive as such. So we talked about standardization and getting like a body that regulates this data. Then with regards to the spaces available at an international level, we're talking about how we need to reach out to places that are similar to the IHR and find out how they go about, engaging youth, and have research groups, exchange programs, and more collaborations. Um, then with regards to data collection, again, we talked about, setting an end goal and kind of standardizing the format in which data is collected, similar to platforms like Kaggle, etc. Then with regards to waste management, we talked about how there needs to be more awareness, more stringent laws, and then learning best practices from areas like Sikkim that have done waste management well, considering that the IHR has a lot of waste generated from tourism. And then we talked about like coming up with local waste management solutions to deal with whatever waste is generated. Then we talked about how the youth, the role that the youth play in building a climate conscious society. So uh, we talked about how the youth are tech savvy and how, getting climate conscious uh, ways of living and lifestyle choices into the grassroots level, and how that would, build up to be exponentially beneficial. Then yeah, with regards to media used in rural area, we just like discussed about how there were awareness posters, newspapers, and radio as the key methods. We had a little bit of a difference with regards to whether it should be participatory or exclusionary, so that was fun as well. And the final slide was with regards to local food market, about, and we were in agreement that we should get them online, but we did have a bit of discussion with regards to how beneficial platforms such as say Amazon are with regards to this. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Deep, and everyone. My God, it was such a wonderful discussion that we had, and really insightful, really good points have come up. And we have, as I said, at 6 o'clock, we do have a space where we can, talk about all these issues in the summit. And we will definitely put these points forward. And so with this, we come to the end of our discussions. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in, for, just being a part and joining in the conversation. Please do keep it going. We definitely should keep in touch. We should be more, we should inform each other about these sort of summits and youth groups that are there. So please do keep in touch. I think the three of us will put in our mail IDs. I can see Leanne had a question, but due to time constraint, Leanne, I will definitely make a note of this. I am no expert in these topics as well, but your question is a really good one, and I will definitely take a note on this and get back to you. We will put in our email addresses. Do keep them, and do keep in touch. So that would be really, really good. We have a governance session from 2 o'clock, I think. If you all are interested, do go into the Hubilo platform. I hope you all have registered in the Hubilo platform, because there are really some good talks and information that is there. So do join. It is inme.in. So you can go there and see. This is there, and there is also a Hubilo platform. I will also put that in the chat box. So you guys can, let me just put it. And I would request Abhishek, Shalini to also put in their email addresses if anyone wants to get in touch. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much, and hope to see you in future as well, online or offline. Goodbye.
Thank you, Shreya, Abhishek, and the others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.